in Middleton, and this is a video update on our road test of the Mitsubishi Triton 2.5 litre direct injection turbo diesel. A bit of a mouthful, but this particular model is a fairly dramatic revision of the previous model, which was originally 3.2 litre direct injection, which is obviously regularly updated and tuned by us using Ecutech software and XAXB XC power kit upgrades. And this particular model has been released by Mitsubishi as a further what we'd say expansion or upgrade of the success of the previous models, with obviously the big difference going from a 3.2 to a 2.5 litre engine. So got a bit of traffic to drive through here in Sydney this afternoon for the road test, which is a perfect environment to try out this car for obviously its off-road and on-road capabilities. Most of the time, let's be honest, these cars are used pretty extensively on the road these days. At the moment I'm driving in two-wheel drive, but it's also obviously four-wheel drive, and got some pretty good results. The car's quite nice to drive, the seating position's okay. I must be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed with the seats. I don't think they're as good as the previous model, but let's get into the road test and I'll give you some updates along the way. Afternoon peak hour traffic in Sydney is probably not always a good way to choose to show off the true capability of some of the performance outputs of some of these cars, but let's be honest, the turbo diesel engine these days in this application has got bucket loads of bottom end torque, nice and easy to drive. This is the 5-speed manual version. I also come in an auto version, which is a nice lazy way to drive around town, and because of the huge torque capacities of these turbo diesel direct injection engines, and you can sort of obviously drive them around fairly lazy, low RPMs. At the moment I'm in 4th gear, 1500 RPM, just pulling along at less than 60 kilometres an hour, and the car obviously responds quite well to its bottom end torque. Now, interestingly, this morning when I first picked up this car to do some of the testing, it was quite wet, and the car in two-wheel drive mode in 1st and 2nd gear, if you're a little bit aggressive on the throttle, is quite capable of lighting up the tyres, and the traction control fitted to this particular model, whilst it works adequately, is probably the best description of my opinion on the way the traction control does work. Now, of course, being a four-wheel drive model, let's be honest, does it really matter that much? No. But in peak hour traffic this morning when I was driving the car, school zones and to and from work, which a lot of people obviously drive, you don't want to feel nervous driving around in these types of cars, and I did feel a little bit nervous, but then again, it's a car that's got good all-round performance with some pretty good serious off-road capability, and the 3.2 litre version, which is one of our test vehicles owned by one of our staff at MRT Performance, has certainly been put through its paces in recent years and shows what capacity that car can truly deliver in ultimate power and incredible torque, and of course good off-road capacity as well. The seating position is fairly high. I'm a fairly tall person, but I'm sitting up quite upright. I said earlier on the seats are a little bit average, but let's be honest, you don't buy a Triton for its comfort. The dash layout's fairly basic. The stereo unit's fairly simple, but it provides the right type of response for what you need. But let's be honest, what you guys want to know is just how well this goes compared to the 3.2 litre. And I must be honest, getting in and out of turbo petrol engines, it's quite different to driving a turbo diesel, and you want to get used to changing the way your habits are of using this particular type of engine. You don't want to rev it hard because they just fall over in performance. Now, that said, in a standard situation, now obviously one of the upgrade opportunities we have with this particular model is converting the factory ECU into an adjustable ECU and then retuning it and generating a healthy increase in both power, torque and fuel economy, less rattle from the injectors, less smoke, and of course doing it correctly using the electronic boost control, which this particular car has, fairly similar to the current model turbo Pajero, which has got the 3.2 litre engine. Whilst I'm sitting here at the traffics, we'll just have a look at some of my notes. Electronic throttle control, exhaust gas recirculation is effectively the same. Boost is now electronically controlled, as I spoke, similar to the Pajero. Rev limit is now at 4,500 RPM compared to a lesser RPM on the previous models, which is about 4,200. It is actually noticeably laggier, unfortunately, with emissions requirements and the ever-impending need to meet target emissions around the world. Mitsubishi and manufacturers are constantly battling to achieve those figures, so sometimes that results in lesser performance with some of the newer models, whilst the manufacturers push hard to continue to deliver what we all want. At lower RPM has got a very sharp peak torque around 2 to 2200 RPM. Now that is quite noticeable when you're driving the car. You accelerate off, which I'm at the moment, right in the meat of the map, and it comes on hard, and then it feels like I'm on a bit of a roller coaster. The car, from a performance point of view, just falls off. Now we know with the ECU upgrade a lot of that's going to be improved, but the good thing about the opportunities for this engine is they come from the factory very detuned, and that gives us the opportunity to obviously deliver a healthy improvement in performance. From a handling point of view, you do set up fairly high, so obviously you would expect a reasonable amount of body roll. It's got a live rear axle, leaf spring, a bit of old technology, but you know, it's still fairly common in off-road applications these days. Independent front suspension with coil springs and shock absorbers. They does benefit, like the 3.2 litre version, with an improvement in stiffness of replacing the front sway bar to reduce body roll, because remember, stiffer springs on the front and leaf springs on the back are not an excuse for replacement of reducing body roll, whereas it's better off to replace and fit stiffer sway bars, because sway bars are designed to reduce body roll, whereas springs and shocks are designed to control the car when it's driving down the road and support the weight or the mass of the body. Brakes, tyres, okay, we're not driving a WRX STI or a Mitsubishi Evo here, we're driving a car that's got a good compromise. The road noise is reasonably quiet. It is a car that I would feel quite comfortable in driving to and from work, and I'm not so sure whether I would choose the manual or the auto version. Having driven the auto version of our test car for quite some time, I do find it a fairly lazy way to get around town. And the other good thing that I wanted to comment on is the model with the auto transmission does benefit with a revised shift pattern after the ECU has been upgraded, and that's a direct result of the change in the torque outputs of the ECU tune. So you don't end up with a car that's constantly kicking down gears and trying to get the car going, whereas with the auto transmission holding the gear for longer, it will actually use the torque of the upgrade with the ECU tune that will then deliver a better result both in performance as well as the drivability of the auto transmission. This, we spoke, the new auto also has got a 5-speed electronic control with a claimed 50 Newton metre drop in torque from the factory. Now that's a bit of a worry, but it's an indication of how manufacturers are a little bit conservative these days with torque running through auto transmissions, because it's a fairly big ask of an auto transmission to take a fairly healthy improvement in torque, and that's one of the areas that we do a lot of testing with, and it's something that we need to be conscious of in modern day use. Another good example is the MY10 STI that's come out for the first time with an automatic transmission. Now that particular car also has less torque than its 6-speed alternative with the manual transmission.